Instead of going through each session, I will just focus on version 11 and the final release for this video. Version 11 was the last version, before I copied over the code from Nel-Man that handled the dynamic UI and auto-rotation of it. I don't want to share how I did that bit, as it took me some time to figure out a workaround for what is a more janky aspect of Godot. I also plan to use it in more legit game releases in the future. Anyway, by the time of version 11's completion, I had added the touch control UI element, but they are arranged for hidden UI mode, meaning they are behind the game graphics. I also had added the code for displaying the instructions, although I had yet to finish creating them, so I used Nel-Man's instructions as a placeholder. Sound had also been recorded and placed into the game. At this point, I spent a few continuous hours playing the original game Watch, and made some observations which I jotted down. To be honest, even I, who wrote these notes, am now having some trouble deciphering some of what I meant. As of the time I'm putting this video together, it has been a day since I decided that I'm completed working on Nel-Bert, well, barring some major bug or omission being found. In admission, I had uploaded a version of it a few days prior, but discovered I had forgot something, so I updated the code and uploaded it again. I then discovered a bug, so updated the code and uploaded. Then I discovered another omission, updated, uploaded. Rinse repeated about 6 times in total. Also, it should have been forgotten, not forgot in that last line. That whole jump over, if timed right, was a bit of an issue with Nel-Man. I have vague memories of seeing it on the original Watch, but when making the game failed to witness it. It happened on Nel-Man when playtesting though. I felt with a power pellet this was an issue, so I made sure ghosts were eaten when in a scared state, but still jumped over able otherwise. At last, note about linking the death blink rate to the game timer. I changed my mind on I'll now go through the code of the main script. Only that one, as I don't remember any changes done to the others. If any done, they were minor. Enjoy the respite from the text-to-speech voice. The function to play sound, I'll get back to later. Code to show the instructions. Just an image displayed over the game. The more important parts are under the physics process function. And here is that physics process. Starting with code to disable the auto display instructions timer. If an input is entered, wonder if I should comment to fill the silence. Much of this code was covered in the previous video. An occasional call to the play sound function is all of note. Since deciding I'm done with this game, I find I'm rapidly forgetting what I did for it, as I think instead on the next projects. I've also doubts on how many are that interested in this part of it. Code to update the score, which I later in this video make a snarky remark about forgetting to mention. Still missing in this version is the timing adjustment for levels, and even just between adversary moves. Session time. In the original instructions it mentions that changing the minute resets the seconds timer. Since the watch doesn't display seconds past the blinking colon, I left that out. The code for the death blink, which was still missing in the last video, along with displaying the updating score, which until now I forgot to point out. It was somewhere in the physics process. That is when recording this footage I remembered that I needed to cover the code handling sound. If using Godot 3.x, remember to disable looping in the import options, which is set on by default. The features to set the watch back to attract mode, if no input entered after some time has passed, and to make Nel-Bert jump down to the next block of the pyramid, if on the top too long, were added too. The on FX audio player finished is important, as often in this game. And more so for Nel-Man. The game pauses while sound plays. In hindsight, I should have just paused the game timer. Something robot tech, Nel-Man, and this version of Nel-Bert lack is being able to use mouse clicks to activate the touch controls, something I have fixed in Nel-Bert's final version at least. I'll also fix it here now for demonstration purposes, or something. Also, quick note of the old display settings, which only work if the game's displayed content stays a consistent aspect ratio. Or if it doesn't, that you don't care that it gets all distorted. I'll fast forward this bit, where I'm confused why the mouse click isn't working on the touch control. The issue was that the control I was clicking on to change the interface layout hadn't been coded in. Here are the files used to make the graphics, including instructions. I find it is better to save new files than saving over the existing file most of the time, since sometimes I realize a mistake is easier to correct from an earlier version. I didn't record the process of making the button graphics, but I used Inkscape, so the process was similar to what can be seen in the first video of this series. With many aspects of this game, I used the previous one, Nel-Man, as a jumping off point, while I used Inkscape for the base drawings. I used Krita to color on press mode and for cropping. Here are the instructions. A bug in Inkscape seems to be that sometimes fill in colors to fonts of words done in a different font revert to all black or something. Here are the sound files. There are only like 2 or 3 types of beeps, but sometimes they repeated in a specific way, so I just kept those sequences as a separate sound. And here is when I realized that how I had OBS set up, it didn't record any sound, so I'll have to re-record this bit and the gameplay examples. So some footage cuts. You may have noticed that some of those sound files were silent, since some game events are tied to when sounds end for a track mode. I decided to just take the files and remove the sound. There are other ways I could have handled it, like just making sure, when not in game mode, that the sound was muted, but it was the solution I chose. Curious, those sounds in the omitted folder are just a beep which lacked some silence at the start, which I later realized was needed for timing, and a sequence of 2 beeps that wasn't needed. This folder are the files used to make the custom icon. The notes related to timing. I first examined the gameplay video of the watch in KDN Live, but the timings I was getting seemed odd. So I examined the pure audio recordings in Audacity. Gameplay, when OBS didn't capture sound, so sped up. Bug. Hopeful is still not in it. There should be a pause after level completion, but it started up right away. Now gameplay with sound. Note the bug where the level complete sound doesn't play if the pyramid is completed via the disc. Also no high score shown at the start of a game. Where no input at top of pyramid, so jump down shouldn't have been activated. I think I fixed that in the final version. I know I modified the code but not 100% sure it did the trick. And another bug. No issue. If the ball is at one of the top two positions for it, when the player jumps onto the disc it usually turns into a new snake to replace the one that jumped off the pyramid. Interesting bug. Unfortunately have misplaced or simply don't have anymore. The instructions for my Q-Bert game watch on archive.org though. There are instructions for a bootleg version of it. I based Nel-Bert's instructions on these. For comparison's sake I'm showing them here. Comparison of version 11 and the final's content folders. Note the custom icon in the final version. Also some no longer needed graphics were removed. While I did use LMMS for robot tech, it was neither used for Nel-Man or Nel-Bert. The dangers of copy-pasta. TV. And here is part of the final code. I'm just showing the bottom half of the main script. Most of the important game code is there, so any changes worth showing should be visible. A game timing code. new snake after disc jump from a top ball was fixed here. One of those bugs was an if, where it should have been elif. That was the code. Now on to some gameplay. Layout button now does something. Just like in Nel-Man. There are 4 UI modes. Left and right-handed horizontal display modes, a vertical display mode and hidden UI mode. The screen also will automatically change display modes by default, but manually changing the mode to a different mode will make that mode stick. The high score is now shown on down right. Press and release starts the game. Just like the watch. I didn't realize it worked that way, or had forgotten, until dealing with the no high score shown issue. The level complete sound now plays when finishing the pyramid from a disc jump. It played really terrible for a bit. It improved after changing hand positions. And fast forward some of this. to snake from a ball starting at the top after a disc jump. New life after 1000 points, implemented many versions ago, but I forgot to mention it, so I'm here. To experience or re-experience this game, watch for yourself. Visit shroudingerscatcreations.com/Nelbert now or later to play it. And while you are at it, how about trying Nel-Man and Robot Tech 2?